بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Inshallah the sound is good. Ahmed turned up, everything's well, everything's good. Alright, so tonight's lesson is on Lu Lu Wal Marjan فيما اتفق عليه الشيخان, Sheikh Muhammad Fuad Abdul Baqi rahimahullah ta'ala. We've mentioned previously before the importance of the book, the status of the book, and some of the tools, some of the practical steps of using and making the most of the book. The compilation of hadiths from Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. We're still in the chapter or the book of marriage, Kitab al-Nikah, and we have reached the 8th section or the 8th subchapter, which says باب استئذان الثيب في النكاح بالنطق والبكر بالسكوت. Chapter 8 says a matron should give her consent for marriage in words, while a virgin's consent for marriage is her silence. A matron, a thayyib, a woman who has previously been with a woman, a woman who's previously been with a man, she's the opposite of a virgin. Her consent, i.e. something which is binding in a marriage, no woman is allowed to be oppressed and wronged and forced into a marriage. No woman is allowed to be forced into a union with a man whom she isn't pleased. She has to speak up. Yes or no. I don't like him, I do like him, etc. In contrast, or versus a matron, a woman, a virgin, who may be shy and bashful, and her silence would be the approval of her not saying no, and her giggling or chuckling or putting her face down, turning her face away. Everyone understand this? That's what this chapter heading is about. I.e., a father, a guardian, a wali, marrying off this young woman. And that the guardian is not allowed to marry the girl off to someone whom she isn't pleased. He isn't allowed to coerce her, he isn't allowed to force her, etc. And if and when he presents, or not if, but when he presents his consent to her, or he asks of her consent, he presents the offer to her, she's either going to speak out, yes or no, or she's going to keep silent. And in both situations, there are different rulings and different meanings. Khairan inshallah. So we're clear on the chapter heading and the desired fiqh that we are to learn and study from the following hadiths. What you should be looking out for, so on and so forth. Khairan. Chapter 8, hadith number 895. Hadith Abi Hurairah anna Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam a'taytum shahi. You gave them tea? You gave them all tea? كيف أعطيتهم الأكل بدون هو مع بعض يا أخي الكيك و is not the same, right, Mamoon? It's supposed to be what? طيب. It's supposed to be together, right, Khalid? You messing up my plans, Ahmed. Last check. طيب. Hadith 895. حديث أبي هريرة أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تنكح الأيم حتى تستأمر ولا تنكح الأيم قال لا تنكح الأيم حتى تستأمر أو تستأمر ولا تنكح البكر حتى تستأذن. قالوا يا رسول الله وكيف إذنها؟ قال أن تسكت. حديث عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت قلت يا رسول الله أيستأمر النساء في أبضاعهن؟ قال نعم. قلت فإن البكر تستأمر فتستحي فتسكت. قال سكاتها إذنها. So there are two hadiths in this chapter, Ahmed. Two hadiths. Hadith 895 is narrated by Abu Hurairah. The Prophet ﷺ said, a matron should not be given in marriage except after consulting her. And a virgin should not be given in marriage except after her permission. The people asked, O Allah's Messenger, how can we know her permission? He said, her silence. Hadith 896 is narrated Aisha radiallahu anha. I asked the Prophet ﷺ, O Allah's Messenger, should the woman be asked for their consent to their marriage? He said, yes. I said, a virgin, if asked, feels shy and keeps quiet. He said, her silence means her consent. So two hadiths, one reported by Abu Hurairah, the second reported by Aisha. Both of them are in Bukhari and Muslim, dealing with the same main theme, the same main topic, a woman being married off. One has previous experience with a man and another does not. Everyone understand this? Both of them need, or the marriage for either of the two needs approval, needs consent, needs permission. The woman who's been with a man, in most cases, is going to say or do something, and a woman who has not been with a man in what? In most cases. In most cases, because it could be a girl who's a virgin who speaks out. Correct? You guys with me or not? No, you're not. Tayyib. The woman who's been with a man, in most cases, she's going to be more? No. And a virgin, in most cases, is going to be? But not necessarily each and every single time. Everybody clear on this? So the atmosphere of this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, one way of understanding these two hadiths is that he's speaking on what was customary and traditional. And another way of understanding these hadiths is that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is saying the rules, period. Everybody understand the difference? But obviously, for Islam to be applicable to every time, for every race, every nation, so on and so forth, one is going to say that this has to have some sort of traditionality or traditional nature to it. Whereas there's a girl who's never been with a man, but she says, Abby, I want to marry him. And she doesn't what? Stay quiet. Or vice versa. A woman who's with a man, she could be extremely shy as well. Naam? Khayr inshallah ta'ala. And just because a woman was with a man before, doesn't mean that she has lost her shyness 100%. She could have been married for a day, for a week. The marriage could have been a miserable marriage. She was never pleased. She may have been married and so on and so forth. Everyone understand this? What's important is that the marriage it isn't allowed to be done without the consent of the female. Without the what? Without the consent of the female. Everybody understand this or not? All right, khair inshallah ta'ala. An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says here, قال العلماء الأيم هنا الثيب كما فسرته الرواية الأخرى الذي ذكرنا وللأيم معان أخر والصمات بضم الصاد هو السكوت. قال القاضي اختلف العلماء في المراد بالأيم هنا مع اتفاق أهل اللغة على أنها تطلق على امرأة لا زوج لها صغيرة كانت أو كبيرة بكرا كانت أو ثيبة. قال إبراهيم الحربي وإسماعيل القاضي وغيرهما والأيمة في اللغة العزوبة ورجل أيم وامرأة أيم وحكي أو وحكى كذا حكي وحكى أبو عبيد أنه أيم أيضا. قال القاضي ثم اختلف العلماء في المراد بها هنا فقال علماء الحجاز والفقهاء كافة المراد الثيب واستدلوا بأنه جاء مفسرا في الرواية الأخرى بالثيب كما ذكرنا وبأنها جئلت مقابلة للبكر وبأن أكثر استعمالها في اللغة الثيب. وقال الكوفيون والزفر الأيم هنا كل امرأة لا زوج لها بكرا كانت أو ثيبا كما هو مقتضاه في اللغة. قالوا فكل امرأة بلغت فهي أحق بنفسها من وليها وعقدها على نفسها النكاح صحيح. وبه قال الشعبي والزهري قالوا وليس الولي من أركان صحة النكاح بل من تمامه. وقال الأوزاعي وأبو يوسف ومحمد تتوقف صحة النكاح على إجازة الولي. So we have several technical issues dealing with these hadiths, dealing with this chapter heading, and dealing with this ruling. Everybody understand? Several issues. Issue number one is the linguistics of the hadith. This is why the T was supposed to be what? Huh, Ahmed? It's supposed to be what? Qabl. Sahih? Elias? Khalas. Ayo, right? MK. It was supposed to be what? Set up. Tayyib. Al-Muhim. Allah is perfect. And none of us. Starting with myself. Naam. Tayyib. What's important is the first technical issue is what's meant by this word. Al-Ayyim. Obviously, we've translated the hadith into English. And the translator chose to use the word a matron. And in parentheses, he puts thayyib. What is a thayyib? La. What is a thayyib? Who reading English knows what a thayyib is? Right? Wouldn't it have been simpler and easier to say a non-virgin? Even the word matron. Who knows what the matron means in the English language? First thing you think about when you hear matron is what? A patron. No, a matron, some type of, was that a mare or a horse? Some type of, what is a matron, right? Al-Muhim. The word thayyib versus the word ayyim. So the hadith states, La tunkahu al-ayyimu, is that an ayyim is not to be married off. What's meant by that word ayyim? So the word ayyim in the Arabic language can mean several things. An-Nawawi, he says, the first meaning is that it means a woman who is husbandless, small or big, old or young. A woman who has no what? No husband, whether she's a virgin or not. At the moment, a woman who doesn't have a husband is called ayyim. That's point number one in the Arabic language. Moving forward. Also, it means a single man. And also, an ayyim could be a woman who isn't a virgin. So the hadith could be talking about a woman who's been with a man, or a woman who is husbandless, even if she still is a virgin. And obviously that fork in the road in the Arabic language is going to have a direct impact on the fiqh ruling. The meaning of the hadith, let alone the fiqh ruling. So step number one, al-lugha al-arabiyya. What's meant by this word? What's the i'rab of this word? Right? Kasra, dhamma. Is it maf'ul? Is it this? Is it that? The lugha is going to have an impact on the sharh of the hadith. And the sharh of the hadith is going to have an impact on the mas'ala fiqhiyya. Everybody understand this? How things work. There's one principle you can take and you can apply it to, without any exaggeration, thousands of masail. Everybody clear on this? Moving forward. No questions at the moment. Move forward. He says, Nawawi states, he says, is that here what's meant is thayyib. And it doesn't just mean a single woman. That's the view that he takes here. As it is explained in other versions of the hadith. Other what? Other versions of the hadith. All right. Qadi Iyad, Nawawi's predecessor, states is that the scholars of Islam, they differ on what's meant by this word here. And they differ on the ruling here. As far as the ulama of Hijaz, Mecca, Medina, Taif, wal fuqaha kafatan, and he says the overwhelming majority of scholars, then they hold the view is that it is the woman who has been with a man before. As is stated in other versions of the hadith, and obviously it's a versus game. They say it only makes sense. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned a bikr, so in contrast or opposite to the virgin girl was going to be And of course, every woman here is going to be without a what? Common sense. She's not going to be getting married if she's... So they say these two context clues show and prove is that what's meant by ayyim is thayyib. And there's a difference, that makes a difference and impact on the ruling, which we'll get to soon enough, inshallah ta'ala. Number 3, their third context clue is that they say that in most cases in the Arabic language, ayyim means thayyib. And that's a crucially important point with regards to understanding Arabic and understanding the ins and outs of Islam, especially in issues of Aqeedah, and especially with regards to the different groups and schisms, the denominations who deal with figurative interpretation of Allah's sifat. And they say that this word in the Arabic language can mean this, can mean that, can mean that. Which in many cases that is the case. But regardless of the verse, the beginning, the middle, the end of the verse, let's ask a question. 9 out of 10 times, when this word is mentioned in the Lugha al-Arabiya, what does it mean? And of course, that is going to be the default. That's going to be what? The default. So it's talking about in English. It's just an example in English. If I say hand, in most cases, when the word hand is mentioned, what's meant by it? The first thing you think about is a what? Even though in English, you say, give me a hand, meaning lift it up with 2 hands. I need a hand, I need help, right? You got a long hand, long arm in the streets, power, influence, the black hand, someone who's behind the scenes moving the puppet strings, manipulating people. Everyone understand this? He's a very handy person, a handy man, right? Etc., etc., etc. But the akthar isti'mal in most cases is used for, so that means something. So different groups, when they talk about this could mean this and it means this, there are 20 meanings of the word this in Arabic. Wajh can mean 50 things in Lugha al-Arabiya. Yad can mean 50 things in Lugha al-Arabiya. We say, for argument's sake, no doubt about that. There are over 100 words for the word lion in Arabic. Asma'ul Asad. Everyone understand this? But when it's mentioned, everybody clear on this? And we're not talking about Aqeedah, but I'm trying to show you from one thing how to learn 10,000 things. So those are 3 points that they use, those ulama, is that what's meant by this word, ayyim, is thayyib. Then the second view, the second understanding of the scholars of Kufa, and Imam Zufar, one of the disciples, one of the great Hanafis, he says is that the ayyim is a woman who is husbandless. Bottom line, virgin or not. And this is what's meant by it in the Arabic language. So they say, listen carefully, now we reach the destination, the thamaratul khilaf. Thamaratul khilaf. When you study comparative fiqh, you have to have a thamara. There has to be a fruit, there has to be a benefit studying the difference of opinion. What does it mean? Is there anything different? Or they're just saying tomato, tomato. But no, they're not saying tomato, tomato. They're saying green pepper, bell pepper, tomato. 2 different things now. Versus the ikhtilaf is just, how you pronounce it. So these people, these ulama, they say, any woman who is of age, كل امرأة بلغت, she's sexually mature, فهي أحق بنفسها من وليها, then she has most right to herself than her guardian. She has the right, more right to marry herself off than her wali. Everybody understand this? Furthermore, she has the right to make her own aqd nikah. She can marry whom she chooses and pleases to marry. And that the marriage is valid. Sahih. And this was also the view of Ash-Sha'bi, Amir ibn Shurahil Ash-Sha'bi from the Tabi'een, the great alim of the Tabi'een. And also Zuhri, Muhammad ibn Shihab. And they say a wali is not a pillar of a valid marriage. It's not something which is absolutely binding for the marriage to be valid or batil. Rather, they said, bal min tamamihi. It's an additional piece. It's a means of perfection and polish. But it isn't from the what? The bedrock of a sound marriage. Moving forward, as far as Al-Awza'i, the alim of Sham, and Abu Yusuf, also from the Hanafi disciples, and Muhammad ibn Hassan as well, they say is that the validity of the nikah is dependent upon the wali allowing it or rejecting it. I.e., a woman marries herself off, the wali finds out about it, he says, no problem, khair, I've accepted him. Versus him saying, I don't accept it. Everybody clear on this? Are we at the same destination or not? Shahriya, repeat to me what I just said in summary.
Initially, Azuri was saying that it is.
We'll come back. We'll come back. Abir, your next at bat. And you just saw the fastball that struck him out. You had time to what? Adjust. The third batter should be preparing his scheme on hitting the ball now. You guys ever play baseball? You have somebody on the mound, right? He's throwing a very fast, hard ball, right? The glove is slapping, or the curveball, or the slider. You second, third, fourth batter, while this batter is there, you're supposed to be doing what? Putting together your strategy not to get struck out. You clear? Faddal. Khalid, you're next. It's easy for you, inshallah. Faddal, Abir. La is already lost. It's not a summary if you're starting with Zuhri. Correct? If we're starting off with Zuhri, that means the summary is off track. Because Zuhri came later on in the Kalam. Sahih? We mentioned Zuhri what? Towards the end. Khalid, Muzammil. Now you're swinging, right? Stretching your arms, hitting your cleats, getting ready, all right? Faddal.
We said we spoke about the difference. The ulama of Kufa, they said that the woman.
Muzammil. Before Kufa. Faddal.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to the ulama of Hijaz, right? Hijaz.
Not as bad. Faddal. We'll give you a shot.
Okay, now, so what they said is that this
3 strikes, you're out, Muzammil. Khalas. It's next in Nabil. La, we never mentioned that. We never said that. Ahmed.
So we spoke about the difference of opinion about how the scholars interpreted what
Khalas, you can't. Khalas. Strike out, no doubt about it. Once the umpire does that, it means what? The catcher throws it to the third baseman. He's out. Tayyib. So we have a no-hitter so far. Tayyib. Ilyas, your last one.
Yeah, let's get him in.
Okay, so we spoke about first the difference of opinion with the definition of the word ayyan.
The difference of opinion about the term, linguistically. Not Hijaz, not Kufa, not Wali. What's meant by the word in the Lugha al-Arabiyyah? A husbandless woman or a woman that's been with a man before. All right? And many other meanings as well. Tayyib. Next point.
So we indicated that the point that now we indicate is that
Salam tullah.
that the word idiom in this specific context, how it's default, the default used in language is that it means the husbandless woman, someone who has never been married before.
La, that's the exact opposite. Khalas. What's important is point number 1 is Jazakumullah khairan. Point number 1 is the scholars differ on the term linguistically. Point number 2, there are no, he says it's thayyib. That's his view. He clearly states what he believes is correct. Point number 3, there's several meanings of it in Arabic. The 2 meanings here adopted by 2 groups of scholars. One is the majority, and second is the minority. The majority say what's meant by ayyim is a woman who isn't a virgin. Matron, or whatever word you choose to use. Tayyib. Khair. How many points do they use to prove that? 3. 1 is mentioned in the hadith, a thayyib. 2 is that's the what? The opposite of virgin, exactly. It only makes sense. And thirdly is that is the, like you mentioned, yes, the majority of usages. View number 2 by the Kufan scholars and others as well, not just Abu Hanifa, is that what's meant by ayyim here is Azuba. Azuba. Alati la zawja laha. The woman who has no what? Husband. Virgin or not. All right, that's linguistically. What's the benefit of knowing this, that, fulan, fulan, blah, 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 blah? What's the fa'idah? What's the thamaratul khilaf? Can a woman marry herself off by herself or not? Can a woman marry herself off or does she need a wali? Are you understanding this? Al-ayyimu ahaqqu bi nafsiha. The hadith states. According to their interpretation, a woman has the most right to herself. She's trying to get married, so of course she's ayyim yani azuba. She has no husband. So their understanding is as if the hadith says a husbandless woman deserves to marry herself off herself. And the virgin, etc., etc., etc. Even before you even go that far to the second part of the hadith, but just understanding the first half of the hadith. Everybody clear on this? So they say, those Kufan scholars, Sha'bi and others, they say is that a woman does not need a wali to marry. Everyone understand? Huh? Ayyim. Thayyib or not. Right? And then there's some scholars who take a third view who say is that she's allowed to marry herself off and the marriage will be valid when the wali finds out and the wali is okay with it. Everyone understand this? Everybody clear on this? All right, tayyib. And of course, there is a further discussion with regards to a woman marrying herself off. There's a further discussion. And there are more proofs and evidences that both sides use for or against, yay or nay. But it just came up here, right? All right, moving forward. قال القاضي واختلفوا أيضا في قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أحق من وليها. And of course, it's a very dangerous and important issue. And there are many modern day ramifications with regards to a woman marrying herself off in 2022. Everybody clear on this? Such as the melting pot of the world today. How many nationalities and ethnicities, or let's say we're all American, how many ethnicities do we have right here in this musalla tonight? Several ethnicities, right? From the Caribbean, from Yemen, sub-Saharan Africa, so on and so forth. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, it wouldn't necessarily be the same. With the exceptions to some exceptional issues such as Hajj. But in most cases, this melting, mixing pot like we have today isn't what? It's not the same. In most cases, 9 out of 10 people in this masjid will be from Bangladesh. 9 out of 10 of these people in this masjid will be of Wahakada. Everybody what? Hahua. And if it isn't an issue of race or ethnicity or lineage, or it will be an issue of class. The working people, the peasant farmers, the traders, the nobles, the aristocrats, the noble people, they didn't what? They didn't mix and mingle as much as it is now. And it's very important to understand the modern day fiqh now. It's extremely important. And that is because your daughter now is from a country, she studies with people from 20 other countries and ethnicities, let alone classes, wealthy, poor, religious, so on and so forth. So it's nothing but a matter of time before your daughter likes, falls in love, has a crush on someone who isn't from her background or of her class. It's nothing but what? Matter of time. Bottom line. Everybody clear on this? Human nature. He's a handsome guy. He dresses nice. He's a friendly guy. I didn't have my book that day. He lent me his out of the kindness of his heart. Right? He's a very religious brother. He's a knowledgeable brother. Everyone understand this? It's nothing but a matter of time. Right? So therefore, she wants to get married. She's from Bangladesh. And she wants to marry Hamza, who's from Yemen. His family's from Yemen. Her father from Bangladesh says what? Impossible. Over my dead body. Or vice versa. Or any other mixture or combination that you want to make. Black, white, Palestinian, you guys get the point. It happens all of the time. Right? So therefore, the sister from Bangladesh wants to marry Hamza from Yemen. Hamza's family is from Yemen. Right? Her family says no. Hamza's family says no. But she wants Hamza. She likes Hamza. Hamza's a nice guy. He's a handsome guy. He's a religious guy. I really want to marry him. No, you're going to marry your cousin from Bangladesh. No, you're going to marry this one from Bangladesh, et cetera, et cetera. She really wants to get married to him. He really wants to marry her. It's nothing but a matter of time before what? If she can't find a one to marry them off, she says what? We can get married ourselves. We're Muslim. I'm pleased. He has my consent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What? Et cetera. So the concept of interracial marriages, intercultural marriages, so on and so forth, this is very important to understand. Can a woman marry herself off, or does her father have full autonomy over her future and control her destiny? You will not get married except through me. And if you get married without me, outside of me, I won't bless your marriage. I'll curse you. I'll make dua against you. And I won't accept your mixed race grandchildren as my grandchildren. And the whole family will divorce you and campaign against you. It's a big problem now. All right? Obviously, the girl from Bangladesh or from Yemen, she goes to her mother. Her mother says, listen, honey, it's nothing you can do. I married your father, and I didn't want to marry him. And we've been together for 30 years now, alhamdulillah. You'll get over it. It's reality. Am I making this up? It's real. You'll get over it. Trust me. You'll cry every night for a week, and then, yeah, trust me, you'll find the good in him. And then she goes to the grandma or the aunt, and they'll tell her what? You can't go against your father. It's shame. We'll be gossiped about. Kada, you'll destroy the family, etc. Just do it. And then the sister, alhamdulillah, she gives in, no problem. But then another sister, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. And next thing you know, it becomes a tie which is unsurmountable. Right? And as I said before, if I had $1 for every time we ran into this issue, interracial, intercultural marriages, the father says no, the mother says no, I'll be a very, very, very wealthy man. All right? And there's some women who will go to the extent of saying, I don't need my father's permission. None of my male family members will marry me off. The imam at the masjid is scared of my father. He pays the imam's salary. So therefore, the only solution is, wow. Let alone when she finds out that the ulama, you understand? Now it's even more slippery. Everybody clear on this. طيب. He says, قال القاضي واختلفوا أيضا في قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أحق من وليها. هل هي أحق بالإذن فقط أو بالإذن والعقد على نفسها؟ فعند الجمهور بالإذن فقط وعند هؤلاء بهما جميعا. And they also differ on what the Prophet ﷺ means when he says أحق من وليها. She deserves herself, she has more right to herself than her wali. Meaning, she has more right for permission and consent, or the permission, consent in the actual marriage. And obviously, both scholars, one takes one and one takes two. All right, moving forward. And as I said before, the ruling of a woman marrying herself off without her wali's permission, this is not the place or the source in which every proof and evidence for or against is mentioned. This is only a selection and a sample of that mas'ala. Those who say that a woman needs the wali, it cannot be done without a wali, they have several proofs and evidences. And those who say that she does not need a wali, they what? Several adillah besides this as well, and besides this linguistical issue. Moving forward. قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أحق بنفسها يحتمل من حيث اللفظ أن المراد أحق من وليها في كل شيء من عقد وغيره كما قاله أبو حنيفة وداود ويحتمل أنه أحق بالرضا أي لا تزوج حتى تنطق بالإذن بخلاف البكر ولكن لما صح قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا نكاح إلا بولي ما غيره من الأحاديث الدالة على اشتراط الولي تعين الاحتمال الثاني. وأعلم أن لفظه أحق هنا للمشاركة معناه أن لها في نفسها في النكاح حقا ولوليه حقا وحقها أوكد من حقه فإنه لو أرادت تزويجها كفءا وامتنعت لم تجبر ولو أرادت أن تتزوج كفءا فامتنع الولي أجبر فإن أصر زوجها القاضي فدل على تأكيد حقها ورجحانه. Moving forward. The Prophet ﷺ says, أحق بنفسها. She deserves her nafs, herself, more than him. It could possibly mean she has more right than her wali in all aspects. the contract and anything other than the contract. Like Abu Hanifa, Dawood, and those ulama have said. She can do everything, what? Herself. And others, they say what's meant that she has more right to her consent and her pleasure and her acceptance. I'm pleased with this. I give my consent for this more and stronger than the wali. I.e., the second interpretation, both of them have strong cards in the game, but the woman has the ace of spades. Her card trumps his. They both have power. They both have a haqq, but the woman's haqq is greater and stronger. Everyone understand this? He says, rahimahullah ta'ala, in other words, she is not to be married off until she verbalizes, she speaks, she utters her consent. In contrast to the virgin. However, now know what he says, since it is authentically reported, la nikaha illa bi waliyin. There is no marriage except with a wali. And there are other ahadith regarding that the wali, or showing that the wali is a condition for the marriage, then the second interpretation is stronger. And not just everything but birrida. So Nawawi, he mentions another proof here for those ulama who say that a woman needs a wali to get married. And this obviously is one of, not the only, but one of the strongest evidences that those scholars use. La nikaha illa bi wali. There's no marriage except with a wali, right? And Nawawi, he says here, is that this hadith is authentic. And others may say otherwise. Moving forward, he says here, and what's meant by a haqq, she deserves more, she has a greater right, a stronger right, a higher right, a bigger right, is musharaka. Is it something that's mutual, or is relatively speaking, like a seesaw, like a scale. There are two sides, two haqqs. This one is heavier than that one. Everyone understand this? And this means is that she has a haqq and her wali has a haqq, but her haqq comes before his and is above his. So therefore, if he wanted to marry her off to someone who's a suitor, someone who is compatible, and she says no, she cannot be forced. Let alone if the man is incompatible. But let's say, for example, it's a good match, but she says, no, I just don't like him, or I don't want to do it, she cannot be forced. And if she wanted to marry someone who was compatible, the opposite now, and the wali said no, then ujbira. The wali would be forced to marry her off. And if he refuses, then the qadi, the judge, the Islamic judge, would say, I'm marrying her off to so-and-so. In simple terms, her card is what? What card does she have? Right? The biggest, strongest card. Or she has the queen on the chessboard. The king is powerful, is important, but the queen is more powerful. Everyone understand this? So therefore, there's a suitable match. Father brings a guy similar to her age, race, whatever you consider compatibility. And that's another discussion of what is compatibility. It's a good match. But for one reason or another, what? She just doesn't want to do it. She cannot be forced. Vice versa is also vice versa. There is a compatible suitor. The wali says no. The wali is supposed to be forced. For him now, amla. Her hand is what? Haywa. With regards to that. Am I understanding this? So repeating it once more. There's a suitable match, but she refuses, she can be forced. Correct, Abir? She cannot be forced. There's a suitable match, but she refuses, she cannot what? She can't be forced. All right? She finds a suitable match. The wali says no. The wali? Haywa. And if he says, no, I refuse over my dead body, no, you'll never marry that person from this country looking like this, my grandkids are going to look like that, blah, 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 blah. Then someone is supposed to what? Step in. Everybody understand this or not? And this here is the whole entire concept of a woman who wants to marry somebody. The father says no. Can she go to the masjid? And can the imam be her wali and marry her off, even if the father says no? In America. Obviously, I don't know everything about America. I haven't been to all states. Maybe there are some places that have a qadi. Houston, Dallas, LA, I don't know. Some is, really like dynamic Muslim communities with those mega mosques and stuff. Maybe there's a place in which there is something of a qadi. Maybe in New York City, you never know. Maybe in the UK, Birmingham, London, places were full of Muslims. There may be some type of Islamic legal system there. But in most cases, there is no qadi. And at best, you have a learned person, an alim, an imam, whatever name or title you give him. He tells no muftis in America, especially not from West Philly. That's a fact. No black muftis or scholars or nothing like that. And there will never what? Never ever be one. Don't forget that part, okay, Ahmed? Tell you, you'd be shocked at some of the stories I would tell you, some of the things I go through on a daily basis. You'd be shocked. Wallahi. Blatant racism. You'd be shocked. Al-Muhim. What's important is, can this imam, does he have the authority to do so? And then many other issues like this as well with regards to divorce. Can he split up a marriage? Can he annul a marriage, right? He gives a fatwa, or he says yes, he says no, but it doesn't mean that the father or the husband is going to agree. And that's the difference between a mufti and a qadi. Mufti gives a fatwa, and that's it. You choose to follow or you choose not to follow. Qadi gives a fatwa, the law is enforced. Everyone understand this? And this is one of the disadvantages of a place like here, in which people will do whatever they want to do. Me and you have a dispute regarding money. My sheikh says, I'm right, 100%. And you owe me the money. You have to pay right now. And you say, well, I'm going to my sheikh. And he said the what? Literally. What do? You can't force me. I can't force you. I don't agree. I don't like your sheikh. Your sheikh is a deviant. Your sheikh doesn't follow my madhab. It's a reality. Your sheikh is of a different race. He doesn't understand the issue to begin with. So what do the Muslims do? You're forced to either handle it yourself or go to the courts, in which there's a legal mandate. You have to pay, whether you agree or disagree. Everyone understand this? So that's what the qadi is. The qadi is supposed to have the power and the force to implement the ruling that he sees fit. Even if you differ on his ruling. His ijtihad you don't agree with. Once the qadi gives the ruling, that's it. It's done. It's over. Everybody understand this or not? So can that be applied to an imam of a masjid? Can the imam of a masjid marry off a woman to a man that she wants, she's pleased with, and the father or the family says no? That's a further issue of discussion. Another very important point here, and that is, who said that the father is the wali? Who deserves to be the wali the most? Is it the father? Is it the uncle? If a woman has a son, is it a brother? What is the tartib of the awliya? Because the wali, there are several walis. And this is very important with regards to a woman who reverted to Islam. She has only one Muslim male family member. Or a woman who was born and raised in Islam and she has several. The grandfather says, I like Hamza. He's a fine young man. Why not? But the father says, no. So who is the wali now? The grandfather or the father? Everybody clear on this? Last but not least, the last thing we'll mention here briefly is what's meant by compatibility. Is it deen, character, race, age, profession, financial status? Or is it just two of those or three of those? We've explained all of those issues in Bulugh al-Maram, the chapter of marriage. What do the scholars of Islam say regarding compatibility? Al-kafa'a. And kafa'a is one of the most important aspects of this whole discussion, as we just read. Khayr, we'll stop here tonight. We'll try to leave some time for the questions. Inshallah, this Thursday, don't forget to sign up for our monthly lecture at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be speaking on adoption in light of Quran and Hadith. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina wa imamina.